going to kind of talk about some things that are very fundamental, but are extremely important, because the fundamentals of bass playing really never will change. But the styles and what happens over the fundamentals, of course, will develop and always should develop. So I'm going to get a little, as they say, basic on this. And first thing I talk about with my students at Manhattan School is, I ask them, I always give them the question, I say, what note is the most important note in a 4-note chord? Let's say it was a C major 7, C, E, G, and B. Okay, and of those 4 notes, as a bass player, what is the most important note? And hopefully, I get the first answer is the root is the most important note. And of course, that it's not even about correct. I don't even say right or wrong. I say, yes, I agree with that. The root is the most important note. Then I say, what is the second most important note? Then I see a little bit of uneasiness. And I said, as a bass player. Now, I get one of 2 answers. Sometimes they say the 3rd. Sometimes they say the 5th. Okay? Now, if someone says the 3rd, my answer is, I don't agree. I don't agree that the next most important note for a bass player is the 3rd. And and then they'll say, is it the 5th? And I say, yes, I think that the second most important note to a bass player is the 5th. Now, if the bass player or student says to me right away and answers, why? Says, it's the 5th, and I'll look at them and I immediately trap them and I go, why? And they go, I don't know. They said, well, it's Okay. I give my reason. I don't say I don't want to come on. I'm right, you're wrong. It's not what it's about. These are my opinions, and it's best to weigh my opinions as it is to weigh everyone's opinions and make your own decisions. But I believe it to be the 5th. And then you're screaming out, why? It strengthens the root. And when you have this, root and 5th, that is the cornerstone of what will make a band sound good, will make what the bass does sound good, because that is the underpinning to make the whole harmonic structure work. Now, then I say, what's the next most important note after the 5th? And most people will say the 3rd, and then of course, what do I say? Why? Okay. And the reason why, and probably some of you out there are going, I know why. So put your hand down. It discerns whether it's major or minor. So if you have the root in the 5th, okay, and then if you got that's the major sound. So that 3rd will indicate whether it's major or minor, which is usually done in 3/2. Those are the 2 you deal with, but those are 2-bar patterns. And just the fact that it's a 2-bar pattern opens up a whole other world. But the jazz has a 1-bar pattern, but it has to be in there with the triplets. So, like, I'm going to put in some triplets now, and that's where all this comes from. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a kind of the bass. Like I said, is been an instrument that's been in a state of what do you call it, development for so long, and still is. But when you think about it, the original jazz, they didn't really use acoustic bass in the very early stuff, or hardly used it. Bill Johnson is probably the first real guy that really played the bass. You should check out Bill Johnson. He was an incredible bass player. And they used tuba. They needed bass notes, so they used tuba, and that was kind of like pretty big and even into through the 20s. And then acoustic bass started coming in. And one of the reasons acoustic bass kind of caught on is because the drums were not as codified as they were, and they used a little percussion, and the piano was more of a rhythmic instrument. And the bass used to play like this. Like that. That was kind of how the original bass was played. It was called slap bass. And the music would lend itself to that coming through.